Hi again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Winning Ways with the MIAA. I'm one of your co-hosts, Pete Royce, working alongside Jay Horrigan, as this show features what's going on with the MIAA for a way of sharing information with all of you viewers out there in TV land. I'd like to introduce our guest, of course, Dr. Bob Baldwin, who is the director of the MIAA. Welcome, Bob. Year number 3 for you.
Yeah, I'm a wily veteran now, so I can't claim anymore that things are new. So absolutely, great to be back.
Great. And also Jim Clark, the assistant director. Good to have you back, Jim.
Great to be here. Thank you, Pete.
Okay, so a lot to talk about. Jay, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Let's start with a question for you folks. What's new in 2023 for the MIAA?
Yeah, it's always interesting because what's new is it's a new beginning, right, for every season, every team. It's fresh, it's exciting. There's always new coaches, new athletic directors, graduation of seniors, upcoming rising stars. So it's always fresh and new. But we're trying to keep things kind of stable and where they are so that people know where the foundation is and what we're doing. So we're trying to really create clarity for the members that this is the way we do business, this is what we stand for. So while there's always newness, we're trying to create that stability at our end so that people know where we are and where we're coming from.
And of course, your task is difficult because there are nuances in the different geographies. You have 9 districts that you have to deal with, from the western part of the state to Boston to North Shore to Cape Cod. It presents a lot of challenges for you.
We made the statement early on that it's about the whole, it's about the greater good. Try telling that to one team from one area who doesn't like something that was done, whether it's a rule change, whether it's a decision on a game, because we know it, right? It's all emotional to you. It's for my community. I have to fight for what's best for my community. There are 351, cities and towns in the Commonwealth. We have 9 regions broken down through the Berkshires and the Connecticut Valley and Worcester area, and then north of Boston, south of Boston, the Cape and the Islands. They're different. So you're trying to keep regulatory authority the same, and yet context of what goes on in Pittsfield is different than context of what goes on in Lawrence or New Bedford or Franklin. And so while somebody takes offense to a decision that might have taken place in a game, or you don't see the whole picture. Well, we actually do see the whole picture, and we have to be there to fight just as much. We were in Belchertown on Friday. We have to be there as a voice for Western Mass just as strongly as we're a voice for the South Coast region or as strongly for the Boston Public Schools.
And Jim Clark, you're involved with a lot of the nuts and bolts of running athletics for the state. Does the area of diversity enter into your picture as you try to plan that one big picture?
Oh, absolutely, because that was one of the things that we talked about a lot when we were developing the statewide tournament, is how do you handle, a Division I team in Eastern Mass compared to a Division V team in Western Mass, and trying to be fair to everybody, and like taking, for example, the power rankings formula and making it so that it works not just for that diverse range of schools, but also whatever works for football, works for basketball, works for soccer, field hockey, every sport across the board. It was challenging, but I think that's a lot of the questions we get is as a Division III, Division IV, Division V school, am I being treated the same as Division I, Division II? And we worked really hard to try to be as fair to everybody as possible. It's it's not perfect, but it's as good, as close to perfect as we can get it.
Bob mentioned it's a new year. What's going on in the fall sports campaign across the state?
Well, we're about 3 weeks into the regular season. Our first power rankings are scheduled to come out on September 29th, which is this Friday. So we're gathering the data. We're not only looking forward to that, but we're also looking back at the first 2 years of the statewide tournament, and just crunching the numbers a little bit and seeing what worked, what didn't, as we talk about different things that are hot topics going forward. And we're happy with the way it's worked out so far, but we're not 100% satisfied. We understood that this was going to be a process that was going to involve, and that we were open-minded to making any tweaks or taking any suggestions. And that's what we've gotten as we've gone out to all the various districts in the state, is we've been getting this feedback and seeing what the membership wants, what their thought processes and what their hot button issues are. And again, the challenge is taking all of those different ideas and concerns and everything and putting it all together and coming out with, one answer that kind of satisfies the state as best as we can.
What kind of challenge is it for both of you? You have to deal, obviously, with superintendents. You deal with principals. You deal with ADs. You, in some respects, deal with coaches, players, and parents. Everybody has a different agenda. How, in the overall picture, how do you deal with it, Bob? And then Jim, when it comes to the power rankings, I know every place Pete and I go, you hear people talking about how can this happen? How do you guys deal with all that?
I'll go first, I guess. But so I come from there.
Yeah.
I was in each and every one of those positions, and so I know and respect and have empathy for what they're dealing with. If you want a crisis in your community, it's not about not having a physics teacher. It's about something that goes on with the JV girls soccer team.
Exactly.
And that's the reality. And so that community, that superintendent, it can rock their world.
Yeah.
And you just need to be, I believe you need to be honest. You need to give the answer that is for the greater good, not the answer they want to hear. Sometimes the answer they want to hear works.
Yeah.
But most times you have to just be honest and truthful and say, this is how we deal with things. This is the business at hand. This is the decision that's going to be made. And they're very respectful. I would say the superintendents and the principals get it. The ADs get it. But sometimes there's a lot of emotion when you're a parent and you love your child. And the superintendent principal knows I have to love them all in my district, and we know that we have to love all 230,000 in the state.
Yeah.
So just because someone is upset, someone is emotional, you have to make sure that we keep saying this, uphold with integrity the rules and regulations set forth by the members. The members set these rules and regulations. It's our job to uphold them with integrity and fidelity for all. And when you say that to people, and then you say this is the way it really is, being clear with them is a lot better than just telling them what they want to hear.
Jim, I know we hear about the power rankings. They're coming out within the next week for the fall season. How do you handle the, I don't want to say complaints, but the complaints, the people that reach out to you, how do you handle that? That's going to be a tough juggling act.
I mean, it is, but it isn't. I mean, you just kind of let the math do its thing. And we're all familiar with the transitive property, and we say this team beat this team. Why is Team B ranked ahead of Team A when they lost to them? Well, it's not there's so much that goes into it. It's not isolated to one specific game, one specific team, or anything like that. It's an entire population of, take for example, soccer. It's 320 something. Schools that go into the formula, and you multiply that across, 18 games or whatever, and there's a lot of math that goes into it. And I think that, some of the work that we've been doing we wanted to, again, alluding to what I said earlier, is, making sure what we were doing was right, and we've been testing that against the actual tournament results. And of course, you're always going to get upsets, and that's what makes it interesting. We had a number 32 team beat a 1 seed in boys basketball last year,
right?
And that doesn't mean that the formula didn't work. That means that the system is fine. That means that
one team had a good game.
Every team
one
goes
had
into
an off night.
Every team goes into the tournament with an opportunity, and we want that to be a reality. We don't want these lower seeded teams that go in there thinking they're going to lose by 50 every time. It's great. It's a great message to every athlete that any given day anything can happen, but I think we're striving for the best consistency, and I think what we're seeing is that the higher seeds are prevailing more often than not, and I think that is aids our argument. We can just kind of point to the math and say it's working. Can we improve it? Sure, we could possibly tweak little things here or there, but I think what we're doing is working, and that's the best message that we can put out there.
We will, and we've talked about it in the past, just so the viewers know. At some point, we will do a show on power rankings to try to clarify it, because I think you both agree that a lot of people don't necessarily understand it,
Correct.
understand the math. You hear, I'm sure, Pete, you hear it. You know, you do so many games. How can this team, and you just said it, be ahead of this team when they lost last week and they won? So we will get to that,
And
just so our
Jay,
viewers know.
when we do that, can I bring my high school math teacher with me to interpret it?
Well, I was going to say your nephew who does all the stats for us. So.
But we're talking about two-way communication, right?
Yes.
You're still building that agenda. So specifically, Bob, when you went to Belchertown,
Yep.
did you have an agenda? What did the agenda look like for that particular meeting?
So we do have an agenda. We put together an internal agenda of areas of emphasis that we want to say. These are 4 or 5 areas that we want to discuss. The deadlines for middle level waivers and co-ops, addressing hate and bias in sports. So there might have been 5 or 6 bulleted areas that we put down and say, we're here to provide expectations of what's out there, give you a heads up of what's happening. And yet we also give the district, and this goes deep into our governance. We have district leaders who also now come together, and district meaning those 9 sections, and there are ADs that come together with principals, and they have meetings, and they say, in our district, we'd like to talk about A, B, and C.
Okay.
And so, I recently went out to the Berkshires and met with the superintendent's roundtable, which is something different than, and the first question was, the travel is difficult. And I said, I respect that, I understand that. Pulling a kid out of a class early to travel somewhere is something that is of concern to us. And I said, I get it. We understand that as well. So you have to go out and listen. By the time I left, they understood, though, that we are Massachusetts, and we are a 2.5-hour distance from most places, and we're not North Dakota, Wyoming, or Idaho, but which it's an 8-hour away game.
Wow.
Right.
And a lot of these kids who, of course, the first tournament game we ever had was Monument Mountain at Nantucket in girls volleyball. What are the chances of that?
Right.
Yeah.
And my understanding was there was a reporter on to go there and see how it went, and they came back and said it was one of the best experiences of their lives.
Right.
Because how many kids from Monument Mountain, which you can see New York State, have ever been to Nantucket? They went on the ferry. They were treated like royalty when they went there by the host community. So, the state tournament is about one team winning a state championship. It's about communities and schools coming together for an experience that they may never experience again in their lives. Really that's what a state tournament is about. And so you go to these different areas and you have these discussions about things like this.
We had a football game this past Friday, I believe, between McCann Tech, which is in North Adams, and Carver, which obviously is down almost to the Cape Cod Canal.
Yeah.
I believe they played in the playoffs last year and agreed to play this year as a regular season game.
No kidding.
So you look at the map of the state and you see where those 2 schools are located. But they had no problem making that trip on a Friday because it was such a great experience for their kids to be exposed to kids from a different part of the state.
Cranberry country.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah,
right.
and different cultures,
Right.
everything like that.
Yeah. When you look at changes in the athletic, say, department heads, the ADs, that's changing too, isn't it, Bob?
Yes.
Doesn't it vary depending where you are? You could have somebody with a high-level functioning job discussing strategy with the football coach, another one setting up to make sure that there's trash cans at the field to take
Yes.
care of. It's that wide, isn't it?
And I think the newbie that takes it doesn't realize that the trash cans on the field is one of the most important parts of the
Okay,
job,
yeah.
right?
Right.
That the lines set up on the sidelines to have the management of how it goes, and it's really hard. And I'm just going to be honest now. I also do the principal side.
Yep.
The pipeline of leaders, and we have the adage growing courageous leaders. We need to grow courageous leaders because there are so many leaders, whether it's superintendents, principals, athletic directors, coaches, etc., are getting beat up.
Yeah.
You from the official side.
Right.
Why do we have fewer officials? Not always the reason, but quite often the reason is how they're being treated. And, parents love their children, but they always don't see it with objectivity.
Right.
And so communities don't see it with objectivity. And there are more and more people choosing who are athletic directors or principals or superintendents that, I can't take it anymore for my own social, emotional health and well-being. And that's unfortunate because there's a lot of turnover and a lot of newbies that are in there that don't know it's important to have the trash cans strategically placed and where the law enforcement should be at the game and how to manage it safely. So we need to grow courageous leaders because we're losing them, and that's unfortunate.
When you lose them, Jim, do the schools come to you and say, I just lost my AD, what do I do now?
They don't necessarily reach out to us. I mean, we're our resources, we just try to provide as much guidance as we can, as far as the rule processes and the governance and all that. But it is unfortunate because, we see it all the time, and we're constantly, keeping new administrators up to date with our processes and our processes change on a regular basis as well. So it is unfortunate because that's a real difficult part of the job is seeing that turnover. And
Pete, one of the points to that too is that another misnomer that's out there. We have zero credibility. We have zero options. We have no authority whatsoever, jurisdiction, I guess is the best word, in what goes on with personnel in a school district. That's a school committee hires and fires the superintendent. The superintendent hires and fires just about everybody, and then there's a principal that does the teachers in the building and the AD who does the coaches. A lot of times people say, well, the MIAA should chime in. We have no jurisdiction whatsoever on the local control of decision making, nor do they want us to have that. Coming from a former superintendent, I certainly didn't want the bureaucracy from above calling me and saying, you shall do this. So locals have 100% of the jurisdiction and the authority to hire and to fire and make personnel decisions. Quite often we'll get calls saying, you need to do this about this, athletic director. Not our jurisdiction, not our area. It's locally done through the Commonwealth that there are systems set up for how you deal with personnel, how you deal with decision making, how you deal with discipline, etc.
Another, I think, we're fortunate it is not a huge part of what you do, but it is a part of what you do. You oversee the rules. You're required to enforce the rules. However, you have committees in place that are not made up of you guys.
Correct.
They're made up of administrators from the different towns throughout the Commonwealth who ultimately make decisions if there's a penalty, not a penalty,
Correct.
whatever. How do you guys address that to people? Because immediately the blame goes to you guys. You've done this. We've heard it for years that everybody thinks Franklin gets a break because the MIAA is in Franklin.
Right.
And I'm sure you hear it. I know people hear it when you go to games. How do you handle that?
It's respectful noise.
Yeah.
I mean, if you make your decisions based on what you hear, you'll be terrible at what you do. You just simply have to, uphold the integrity of the greater good, and understand that boards of directors is the ultimate regulatory authority, which is made up of 23 to 25 people from across the Commonwealth, 9 principals, 9 ADs, 4 school committee members, and 4 superintendents of schools from Mount Greylock in Western Mass to we have someone from Upper Cape Vocational.
Right.
This is the makeup. We are a membership-driven organization, and yet, again, it's real easy to have one area that you address all of your issues towards, and that happens to be Franklin and the MIAA. We respectfully understand that, but if we were to succumb to the noise, we wouldn't ever accomplish anything. I believe that little by little, getting out and building relationships, that the silent majority gets it. I truly believe that. They're never going to say anything.
Right.
But I truly believe that the people we're making connections with, we're supporting them.
Yeah.
We've gone around the state now and talked about hard deadlines because we've had some issues in the past that people missed a deadline. Well, when 6,998 coaches and ADs submit an entry for a track event that in 4 days has to be orchestrated by the track and field committee at Reggie Lewis Center, it needs to be done on time and correctly. And when 2 are done incorrectly, you have to uphold that it wasn't done on time or incorrectly. Well, that's what makes the media. That's what makes the paper.
Right.
But those 6,998 are grateful that we're upholding what was set forth by those committees. And so they're not saying anything. They're not going to the paper or the TVs. But ultimately, I believe that we need to stand for something. What we stand for is consistency, integrity of what is set forth, and to uphold what the membership wants. And so if that comes with the label of it's the MIA's fault, well, we can't change that.
We do see you guys, other people from the MIAA attending games, getting out there. And one of the great things to see is, you're wearing an MIAA shirt or something so people know where you're from. Do you get a lot of questions at that point? Do they see you? Do they talk to you?
They turn and run the other way. No, we talk about it internally, is that it's our job to now get out there and raise the flag and say we're proud of who we are. We love the people that work with us towards this common goal. Let's show these people off. We're not people sitting behind an office. We want to be out more than ever, so that if an issue comes, this is who Jim Clark is. He's not some guy figuring out the power rankings. He's a real human being that gets it, has a very respected career in media. And people know that. Or if it's Steve Dobzinski, who is a very respected school administrator and basketball coach, that he's a real practitioner, and that we're not just these fictitious people. The more we get out there, the more people either run the other way, or when they do come up and have a conversation, they're like, that person was kind of normal. They're really not as bad as I thought they would be.
And I know Pete and I can attest to it. The access that people have to you folks and getting questions answered at the MIAA is so much different than it was 5-6 years ago.
Yeah. It's really been a great improvement. One of the things that was big a year ago was the Addressing Hate conference in Boston. You have another conference coming up about 9 months from now. Bob, talk about that, because it's going to be bigger than Massachusetts.
Yes.
The whole country is going to be focused in on the Bay State.
So the National Federation of High Schools, so we are the MIAA, and there's one of us in Massachusetts. There are 49 others, actually 50 others, because Washington, D.C. Each has their own executive director, each has their own state association. We all are members now of the National Federation of High Schools. They are housed in the same building as the NCAA in Indianapolis. So it is the NCAA at the high school level. Okay. That national meeting will be in Boston, June 28th to July 2nd. We will be hosting it, and it's our job to show off what we do. And for those that do have those feelings about us, we're at the forefront of a lot of stuff that's going on nationally. The eradicating hate and bias through the platform of athletics. We're meeting with the NFHS sometimes next week with Pete Smith and Mike Rubin to talk about how we are trying to lead that in that direction. Athletics standards. We're working with the New England Association of Schools and Colleges to try and develop national standards of what an athletic department could and should look like.
There's not a lot of standards out there today.
No.
Yeah.
It's boggled my mind when we said, NEASC has these accreditation visits in which they say this is the way a school should, ideally be run. This is what should happen. That doesn't exist in athletics. And you will get calls from superintendents saying, my AD just left and I'd really like to know how to run an athletic program. Does anything exist? No. So we're using Connecticut as a model, and then trying to tweak some things and trying to present stuff like that. So we're really proud that it's coming to Boston, and we'll be ready in June. We have a lot of work to do.
Jim, when you go to that conference in Boston, you going to bring your dog?
Probably not. No,
Yeah.
no, we had a little bit of a dog conversation off camera. But
Yeah.
Steve can dog watch.
I love my dog, but he has its limits.
Yeah, but you'll be at the conference.
I love it.
I'm sure.
Well, it'll be interesting because this will be my first attempt. I know, Bob and some of the members of our staff went out to the conference in Seattle, and I was actually in Seattle about a month later. So, we were sharing some tips about places to go and all that. But I didn't get the opportunity to go to the national conference, so this is going to be kind of eye-opening. It's been a little bit of a challenge over the last year or so, just kind of putting some different communications ideas in place. And our work with you guys at Franklin TV, that's been a huge part of getting that consistent message out. But I'm really eager to talk to some other colleagues from across the country about, because I look at you look at Michigan and they have like a full communication staff that they use to put out. And Arizona was another prototype I used when I was looking at some of the ideas I wanted to bring to the MIAA. So just kind of picking the brains of some of the people out there that how they do things. And every state is different. Obviously, New Hampshire or Rhode Island or whatever, much smaller states, they're not going to be able to afford to have the resources to do that kind of stuff. But it's just leaning on your colleagues and seeing how other states operate and trying to bring little pieces here to there. We're in the process of rebuilding our website. So we just signed on with a company out in Michigan called Gravity Works Design, which also already works with seven other state high school associations. So we're about a month into that project. So I've been able to look at how other states do their communications platforms and kind of take little ideas and tidbits there and tweak them for what we need to do in Massachusetts. And we're really excited about what that's going to look like going forward. So that's all a big part of the whole grand scheme of just improving our communications and just getting our message out there in whatever avenues we can. Franklin TV is going to be a huge part of that.
Yeah, great. I know, Bob, when you started, you put up the clean slate.
Yes.
Let's build a picture.
Yes.
The picture becoming into focus.
It is. And so the picture starts with what our cause is, and that's to grow courageous leaders. And then what's our purpose? And it should be clearly defined what we should be doing. Then it's about people. First, who, then what? And we have some amazing people in the last couple of years, some people that have been with the association for years, some people that are new to the association. Once you have the purpose, the cause, and the people, let's go. And so now we're at the phase of trying to make consistent decisions across the board so people know what we stand for, and raising the flag and getting out there and saying, we're not as bad as you may make us out to be. Like one of the goals for when people come in June is to go to different media outlets and say, how about accentuating the positive? How about when all these people convene to Massachusetts, that there could be an article or two that's positive about what we do?
Yeah.
Because while there's 230,000 student athletes, all we ever hear about are the 4 negative issues that happen in an entire school year.
Right.
And when you look at those odds, a lot of great leaders are doing a lot of great things for kids. And I think if we accentuated the positive a little bit more, which you afford us to do, and we're grateful for that, but I think other media outlets could give that a try, maybe at the end of June at least, to show that as others come to visit the
Will there
Commonwealth.
actually be students involved at national conference?
Probably not much, but we will get some students involved. So
Yeah.
it's our
Right.
obligation
Yeah.
at the opening ceremony
Yeah.
to have different groups come in and perform.
Great,
So we're
great,
lining that up as well.
great.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
about our kids and our
Yeah.
students. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I imagine they have some feedback.
Yes.
We're about to wrap up, Jay. Any final thoughts, questions?
I just I give the two of you credit. I give Steve a little bit of credit.
Just a
Don't
little.
tell him that.
No.
But your accessibility, I think, is just been huge. Your communication, you're not hiding behind
Nothing.
anything at all. And I know that was one of your goals,
Yeah.
Bob, when you first started.
Yeah.
And it seems like everybody's bought into that.
We have internally, and the more people outside believe it. Sometimes when you're clear and transparent and you say what really is, people don't like that answer either. So
Yeah.
but we're going to continue to be that way
Yeah.
and show what we stand for. And what we stand for is to uphold the integrity of what the membership wants.
Yeah.
We are the voice of the membership. And when they tell us to veer in a different direction, we will. But right now, they're kind of telling us to be consistent and clear and keep moving in the same direction. So that's what we're going to do.
Awesome.
That's great. Okay, well, thanks, gentlemen, for being with us again. Jay, Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me, Pete.
Okay, for Jim Clark and Bob Baldwin, and also other administrator helping out behind the scenes, Steve Dubzinski, this is Pete Royce saying thanks for joining us here for another edition of Winning Ways with the MIAA. Till next time, so long, neighbors.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.